The massive screen at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station lit up with countless red dots. Jack Thompson, the night shift supervisor, blinked twice and leaned forward, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. The dots weren't going away. If anything, there were more of them appearing. "Sir," called out Mary White from her station, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm picking up energy readings unlike anything we've ever seen. They're huge." Jack set down his coffee and pressed the emergency alert button. Within seconds, similar reports began flooding in from space monitoring stations across the globe. Beijing, Moscow, London, and Cape Town. They all reported the same thing. A massive fleet of unknown vessels had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to the public, Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force stood before a gathering of military leaders from around the world. The emergency meeting had been called within hours of the first detection. The room was silent as they watched the holographic display showing the fleet's approach. 327 vessels, Admiral Walker announced, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. All of them larger than anything humanity has ever built in space. They're moving in a clear military formation. The tension in the room could be cut with a knife. Humanity had long prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, the weight of it felt almost crushing. A young lieutenant burst into the room. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel." The hologram shifted, and a figure appeared. It looked almost human, but not quite. Too perfect, too symmetrical. The being wore what appeared to be an elaborate military uniform, adorned with symbols of rank and authority. "People of Earth," the figure spoke in perfect English, clearly using some form of translation technology. "I am Lord Regent Marcus of the Galactic Empire. For too long, your world has remained isolated from the greater galactic community. Your primitive civilization has been allowed to develop unchecked, creating potential instability in this sector. This ends today." Admiral Walker's jaw tightened, but he remained silent as the message continued. "The Galactic Empire hereby demands Earth's immediate and unconditional surrender. Your world will be integrated into our empire, your resources will be properly managed, and your population will be given purpose under imperial guidance. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of defiance." The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. General Thompson from the European Command was the first to speak. "They're treating us like we're savages with spears." "They're in for a surprise," Admiral Walker replied, his voice calm but filled with determination. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Dr. Roberts. It's time to initiate Project Prometheus." Within minutes, Dr. Emily Roberts appeared on screen. Her white lab coat and disheveled hair suggested she'd been working late again in her quantum research facility. "Admiral," she nodded, "I assume our guests have arrived." 300+ ships, Doctor. What's the status of Prometheus?" A small smile crossed Dr. Roberts' face. "Ready and waiting, Admiral. We've completed the quantum grid. Every satellite is in position. They won't know what hit them." Admiral Walker nodded and turned to face the assembled leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, humanity has spent the last 50 years preparing for this possibility. While the Empire focused on conventional space travel, we took a different path. They think we're primitive because we haven't developed faster than light travel. They don't realize we've mastered something far more powerful." He pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared, showing Earth surrounded by an invisible web of quantum-linked satellites. "The Empire is about to learn a very important lesson." Admiral Walker continued. "They're not the only ones who can play at empire building. The difference is, we're not interested in conquering anyone. We just want to be left alone." He straightened his uniform and looked each leader in the eye. "I suggest we send them our response. One warning. That's all they get." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not bow. Not today. Not ever. As the Earth's military leaders prepared their response, the Imperial fleet continued its approach, unaware that they were about to face something unlike anything they'd encountered in their long history of conquest. The underground command center hummed with activity as military leaders from around the world debated Earth's response to the Empire's ultimatum. The room was divided between those who wanted to show their full strength immediately and others who advised a more measured approach. "We should hit them with everything we have." General Thompson slammed his fist on the table. "Show them what Earth can do." Admiral Walker raised his hand for silence, "and reveal all our capabilities at once." "No, we need to be smarter than that." He turned to Dr. Roberts, who was setting up her presentation. "Doctor, show them Project Prometheus." The room darkened as Dr. Roberts activated the holographic display. A complex network of quantum connections appeared, surrounding Earth like a spider's web of light. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "What you're looking at is humanity's greatest achievement. While the Empire was busy building bigger ships and faster engines, we discovered something far more fundamental." The display zoomed in, showing strange patterns of energy flowing between satellites. "We learned to manipulate quantum space itself," she continued. "They're faster than light drives, their energy shields, their weapons. They all operate on principles we moved beyond 20 years ago. They're using outdated technology. They just don't know it yet." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't fallen behind in the space race. They'd taken a completely different path. "Can you demonstrate it?" Admiral Walker asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Roberts smiled and pressed a button on her control pad. The hologram shifted to show a test satellite orbiting Earth. "Watch this," she said. The satellite suddenly disappeared and reappeared on the other side of the planet. There was no flash, no energy signature, no indication of movement. It simply changed positions instantly. "Quantum displacement," she explained. "No energy signature, no travel time, no trace. And that's just the beginning. We can disrupt their FTL drives, disable their shields, and if necessary," she paused, looking around the room, "we can quantum shift portions of their ships into empty space." General Thompson whistled softly. "You mean we can teleport parts of their ships away?" "Precisely. Their hull in one place, their engine core in another, their bridge somewhere else entirely, all without any warning or defense." Admiral Walker stood up, drawing all eyes to them. "The Empire thinks we're primitive because we never developed conventional space travel technology. They're expecting us to fight with nuclear weapons and chemical rockets." He smiled grimly. "They're about to learn that appearances can be deceiving." The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Prepare a transmission to the Imperial fleet. Short and simple. Let's not waste words." As the officer readied the communication system, Dr. Roberts made final adjustments to the quantum grid. Across Earth, hidden quantum satellites silently aligned themselves, ready to demonstrate humanity's power if necessary. The Empire's massive ships hung in space like artificial stars, their weapons primed and ready. Lord Regent Marcus sat on his command throne, watching Earth's pathetic attempts at communication with amusement. These primitives would learn their place, just like all the others. The transmission from Earth came through on all frequencies in all languages. It was just 3 words. "Reconsider your choice." Lord Marcus laughed, the sound echoing through his massive bridge. "Send the first wave," he commanded. "Let's show these primitives what real power looks like." Back on Earth, Admiral Walker watched the Imperial ships begin their advance. He turned to Dr. Roberts. "They didn't listen." "They never do," she replied, her fingers hovering over the quantum control system. "Shall we give them a demonstration?" Admiral Walker nodded slowly. "A small one, just enough to make them think twice." As the first wave of Imperial ships crossed the orbit of Mars, humanity prepared to reveal just how far they had come. The Empire was about to learn why it's dangerous to judge a civilization by its visible technology alone. Lord Regent Marcus replayed Earth's warning message for the third time, his perfect features twisted in a smirk. The bridge crew of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn, watched nervously as their leader burst into laughter. "Reconsider," he said, rising from his command throne. "These primitives still use combustion engines for their ground vehicles. Their fastest ships can barely reach their own moon." He walked to the massive view screen showing the blue planet ahead. "They're like children playing with toys." On his command screen, the invasion protocols flashed green. The Empire had conquered 47 civilizations using these same tactics. It was a perfect system, refined over centuries. First, a show of force, then systematic destruction of military targets. Finally, occupation and integration. "My lord," his tactical officer spoke up. "The first wave is in position. Shall we begin the standard bombardment pattern?" "Yes," Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively. "Let's get this over with. I have more important matters to attend to than some backwater world submission." Deep within Earth's hidden command center, Intelligence Officer Thomas Reed rushed into the main control room, clutching the datapad. His face was pale. "Admiral Walker," he called out. "You need to see this immediately." Walker turned from the tactical display where he'd been coordinating with Dr. Roberts. "What is it, Reed?" "We just finished decoding their transmission protocols," Reed explained, bringing up the data on the main screen. "The Empire. They've done this before. Many times." The screen filled with images and data about dozens of alien civilizations. Each one showed the same pattern: contact, ultimatum, conquest. Some had fought back with powerful weapons. Others had tried to negotiate. All had fallen. 47 worlds, Reed continued, all of them more advanced than Earth, at least by conventional standards, all of them conquered and absorbed into the Empire. Admiral Walker studied the data, his expression grim. Did any of them have quantum technology? Reed shook his head. "No, sir. They all followed the traditional development path. Chemical rockets, then nuclear, then antimatter drives. Just like the Empire." "Then they've never faced anything like us," Dr. Roberts said from her station. She looked up from her quantum control panel. "The grid is ready, Admiral. All defense platforms are in position and cloaked." The Empire's first wave of ships had passed Mars now. 3 massive destroyers led the formation, their weapons primed. Behind them, 24 smaller vessels spread out in attack pattern. "Let them get a little closer," Walker ordered. "Let them think they have the upper hand." In space, the Imperial ships began their final approach. Their sensors showed nothing unusual. Just a handful of primitive satellites and some basic orbital stations. Their weapon systems targeted Earth's major military installations, ready to demonstrate the price of defiance. Lord Marcus watched with satisfaction as his ships moved into firing position. Begin the bombardment. Target their largest military bases first. Show them the futility of resistance. The Imperial ships charged their main weapons, the energy building to devastating levels. Their crews were calm, almost bored. This was routine for them, just another primitive world to add to the Empire's collection. None of them noticed the slight shimmer in space around their ships. None of them detected the quantum field that was slowly encompassing their formation. And none of them realized that their supposedly primitive target had already trapped them. "My lord," a sensor operator called out suddenly. "I'm detecting some strange readings." "Ignore them," Marcus commanded. "It's probably their primitive attempt at electronic warfare. Nothing can interfere with Imperial technology." On Earth, Dr. Roberts looked at Admiral Walker. "They're in position, sir. The quantum field is ready." Walker nodded slowly. They had their chance to reconsider. He straightened his uniform and gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. "Activate Prometheus." As Dr. Roberts' fingers moved across her control panel, humanity prepared to teach the Empire its first lesson in humility. The age of imperial conquest was about to meet its match in humanity's quantum mastery. Dr. Roberts' fingers danced across the quantum control panel. Around Earth, hundreds of hidden satellites activated simultaneously, creating an invisible web of quantum connections. The Empire's first wave of ships, still unaware of their danger, continued their approach. "Quantum field stable," she announced, "ready to initiate displacement sequence." Admiral Walker nodded. "Target their engines first. Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with." In space, the Imperial ships suddenly lurched to a stop. Their mighty engines, capable of crossing light years in days, sputtered and died. Emergency alarms blared across every vessel as their advanced FTL drives simply ceased to exist. Quantum shifted into the void between stars. On the Imperial flagship's bridge, Lord Marcus jumped to his feet. "What's happening?" "Report." "My lord." His engineering officer's voice was panicked. "The engines. They're just gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. They're not there anymore." Before Marcus could respond, Earth revealed its next surprise. Dozens of defense platforms shimmered into view, appearing from nowhere around the Imperial fleet. They had been there all along, hidden by quantum cloaking technology. "Impossible," Marcus whispered. "Their level of technology. We would have known." Admiral Walker's voice came through on all Imperial channels. "This is your second and final warning. Withdraw now." Marcus's face contorted with rage. "Never. All ships, open fire. Show these primitives the power of Imperial weapons." The Imperial ships launched their attack, energy beams, and plasma torpedoes streaking toward Earth's platforms. But as the weapons approached, they simply vanished. The quantum field caught each attack and displaced it harmlessly into space. "Quantum shields holding perfectly," Dr. Roberts reported, a small smile on her face. "Their weapons are about as effective as throwing rocks at a star." Walker looked at his tactical display. "Time to return the favor. Target their weapon systems. Surgical quantum shifts only." Earth's platforms hummed to life. There were no bright beams, no explosive projectiles. Instead, critical components of the Imperial ship's weapons simply disappeared, quantum shifted away with surgical precision. Gun barrels, power cores, targeting systems, all vanished in the blink of an eye. In the Imperial fleet, panic began to spread. Officers watched helplessly as their mighty weapons dissolved into nothing. Emergency channels filled with confused reports and desperate calls for help. "My lord," Marcus's tactical officer called out, his voice shaking. "We've lost weapons on all forward ships. They're picking us apart." Marcus couldn't believe what he was seeing. These primitives, these barely space-capable humans, were dismantling his finest ships piece by piece. No explosions, no dramatic battles, just the quiet, methodical removal of key systems. "Fall back," he finally ordered. "All ships, retreat-to." He stopped mid-sentence as a small quantum portal opened on his bridge, just long enough to remove his command throne, with him still in it. He landed hard on the metal deck. On Earth, Dr. Roberts allowed herself a brief laugh. "Sorry," she said to no one in particular. "I couldn't resist that one." Admiral Walker shook his head, hiding a smile. "Let's stay professional, Doctor." He turned to his communications officer. "Send word to the rest of their fleet. Tell them what happened to their first wave." The remaining Imperial ships watched in horror as their advanced force hung helpless in space, stripped of engines and weapons. The mighty vessels, pride of the Empire, had been reduced to floating hulks in minutes. "Sir," Officer Reed reported, "we're picking up transmissions from their fleet. They're calling for reinforcements." Walker looked at the tactical display, showing hundreds more Imperial ships moving into attack position. "Good," he said calmly. "Let them come. It's time the galaxy learned that humanity is not to be underestimated." Dr. Roberts cracked her knuckles and turned back to her quantum controls. "Ready for round 2, Admiral. This time, let's show them what Prometheus can really do. Lord Regent Marcus stood on his crippled flagship, rage burning in his eyes. Launch everything, every ship, every weapon. I want that planet reduced to ash. The remaining Imperial fleet surged forward, over 200 ships moving as one massive wave. They had watched their first attack force be dismantled with ease, but surely Earth's defenses couldn't handle an assault of this scale. In Earth's command center, Officer Reed studied his tactical display with growing concern. Admiral, they're not holding anything back. All remaining ships are on attack vectors. Admiral Walker remained calm, studying the approaching armada. Dr. Roberts, how's our quantum grid holding up? Perfectly, she replied, her fingers moving across multiple control panels. But they're spreading out, trying to thin our coverage. They're learning. Walker nodded. They're not the first empire to learn from their mistakes. They're just the first to learn about quantum warfare. He turned to his tactical officers. Launch our stealth fleet. Hidden in underground bases across Earth, dozens of ships powered up. They were smaller than the Imperial vessels, but each one was equipped with quantum drives and weapons. They rose silently into orbit, completely invisible to Imperial sensors. The Empire's attack began with a massive barrage. Thousands of energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space, targeting Earth's defensive platforms. This time, some got through. Earth's quantum field couldn't catch everything at once. 2 defense platforms exploded, creating brilliant flares in orbit. Lord Marcus smiled for the first time since the battle began. See, they're not invincible. Push forward. Overwhelm them. But Earth had been holding back too. Dr. Roberts activated their counterattack sequence, and space itself seemed to ripple. Quantum portals opened throughout the Imperial fleet, not to remove parts this time, but to redirect their own weapons back at them. Imperial ships found their shots emerging from nowhere, striking their own vessels. Confusion spread through their ranks as friendly fire became impossible to avoid. Now, Walker commanded, show them our ships. Earth's stealth fleet decloaked behind the Imperial armada. Unlike the Empire's brute force approach, these ships were surgical in their attacks. They opened precise quantum portals, linking the space inside Imperial ships with the vacuum outside. Hull breaches appeared from nowhere. Atmosphere vented silently into space. My lord, Marcus's sensor officer shouted. Enemy ships, they're everywhere. But the readings make no sense. They're using technology we've never seen. Marcus watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart. Some ships were being torn apart from the inside. Others found their weapons firing at their own allies through quantum portals. It was chaos. But the Empire hadn't conquered 47 worlds by giving up easily. Their remaining ships formed defensive clusters, adapting to Earth's tactics. They began firing in patterns too complex for the quantum field to completely counter. They're adaptable, Dr. Roberts noted with professional admiration. Their formations are actually starting to work. Walker smiled grimly. Then it's time for the killing blow. Target their command ship. Full quantum assault. Earth's defense platforms and stealth fleet focused their attack on Marcus's flagship. The massive vessel was suddenly surrounded by hundreds of quantum portals. Its hull began disappearing in chunks. Quantum shifted into deep space. Weapons, sensors, and armor plating vanished piece by piece. No, Marcus screamed as his mighty ship was dismantled around him. This is impossible. We are the Empire. We cannot be defeated by primitives. Sir, Reed reported, the rest of their fleet is falling back. They're retreating past Mars orbit. Walker watched the Imperial ships flee, leaving their gutted command ship behind. Send them one last message, he ordered. Tell them that Earth is now off limits. Any future incursion will be met with total quantum warfare. As the Empire's surviving ships limped away, humanity had proven something to the galaxy. Technological advancement doesn't always follow the expected path. Sometimes, The quiet ones are the most dangerous. The remnants of the Imperial fleet scattered across space like leaves in a storm. Their once proud formation was now a chaotic retreat, with ships jumping to FTL in random directions, those that still had working engines. In Earth's command center, Admiral Walker watched the tactical display as enemy signals winked out one by one. Each disappearing dot represented a mighty Imperial vessel fleeing from the primitive world they had come to conquer. "Sir," Officer Reed called out, excitement in his voice. "We're picking up transmissions from all over the sector. The other worlds. They've seen what happened. Word of the Empire's defeat is spreading fast." Dr. Roberts looked up from her quantum control station. "Should we pursue them, Admiral? We could probably catch half their fleet before they reach safe harbor." Walker shook his head. "No, let them run. Let them tell everyone what happened here." He turned to his communications officer. "But we will send them a message they won't forget." Using the quantum communication network they had secretly built, Earth broadcast across all Imperial frequencies. The message was simple but powerful. Footage of the battle, showing Imperial ships being systematically dismantled by Earth's quantum technology. On thousands of worlds throughout the Empire, beings of all species watched in amazement as humanity revealed its true power. They saw mighty Imperial warships reduced to floating hulks by an invisible force that defied traditional physics. Lord Marcus, now aboard an escape vessel, received the transmission like everyone else. His perfect features were twisted with rage and disbelief as he watched his fleet's humiliation being broadcast across the galaxy. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How did we not know? How did we miss this?" The answer came in Dr. Roberts' voice, broadcast along with the footage. "While you were busy building bigger ships, we were understanding the universe itself. While you conquered through brute force, we learned to bend space and time. You thought we were primitive because we didn't follow your path. You never considered that we might have found a better one." The impact was immediate. On dozens of conquered worlds, populations that had lived under Imperial rule for generations began to stir. If Earth could defeat the Empire so thoroughly, perhaps freedom wasn't just a dream. Back on Earth, Officer Reed's console lit up with new signals. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from other worlds. They're asking for help. The Empire's subject worlds. They want to know if we'll protect them if they rebel." Walker sat down heavily in his command chair, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. Earth had just stepped onto a much larger stage than they had planned for. "Sir," Dr. Roberts said softly, "we have the power to help them. Our quantum technology. We could teach others to resist the Empire." Walker nodded slowly. "But first, we need to make sure they can't retaliate against Earth." He stood up and addressed his command staff. "Send word to our stealth fleet. I want quantum sensors placed throughout the sector. If any Imperial ship so much as looks in Earth's direction, I want to know about it." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Earth's quantum ships spread out across space, placing monitoring devices and establishing a defense network. The Empire's retreat had left a power vacuum, and humanity needed to make sure it was filled properly. "Message from the UN Security Council," Reed announced. "They're calling an emergency session to discuss our new role in galactic politics." Walker smiled slightly. "Tell them I'll be there." But first, he looked at the tactical display, where dozens of signals from oppressed worlds were still coming in. "First, let's show the galaxy that Earth doesn't just fight for itself. We fight for freedom." The quantum grid that had defended Earth was about to become something much bigger, a shield for all those who sought protection from Imperial dominance. Humanity's warning had been ignored, and now the galaxy would never be the same. 1 month after Earth's victory, the galaxy had changed forever. The Great Hall of the United Nations buzzed with activity as representatives from 23 formerly enslaved worlds gathered to sign the Quantum Defense Pact. Admiral Walker stood at the podium, looking out over an audience that included humans and aliens alike. Some had tentacles, others had multiple eyes, but all shared the same look of hope. 6 weeks ago, he began, the Empire thought Earth was primitive because we didn't match their definition of progress. They couldn't imagine that there might be other paths to advancement. He gestured to Dr. Roberts, who sat among Earth's scientific delegation. Their mistake was thinking that technology only moves in one direction. On screens around the hall, images showed Earth's quantum ships helping to dismantle Imperial control centers across multiple worlds. The Empire's grip was breaking, system by system. In a distant sector, Lord Marcus stood before the Imperial Council, his perfect features now marred by stress and defeat. "They must be stopped," he shouted. "If we don't crush them now, everything we've built will collapse." But the Council had seen the footage of Earth's defense. They had watched their finest chips be taken apart piece by piece. For the first time in centuries, the Empire knew fear. "The Empire's reign of terror is over," the Council leader announced, his voice heavy. "We cannot win against their quantum technology. We must negotiate." Back on Earth, Officer Reed burst into the command center with exciting news. "Admiral, reports are coming in from across the galaxy. The Empire is withdrawing from its outer territories. Their ships are falling back to their core worlds." Dr. Roberts looked up from where she was teaching a group of alien scientists the basics of quantum mechanics. "They finally learned to take a warning seriously," she said with a small smile. "Pity it took such a hard lesson." The quantum defense grid that had protected Earth now extended throughout nearby space, safeguarding dozens of worlds. But humanity didn't just offer protection. They offered knowledge. "We won't keep this technology to ourselves," Walker announced to the assembled representatives. "Earth will teach any peaceful civilization that wishes to learn. The age of imperial conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun." In orbit, Earth's quantum ships patrolled alongside vessels from newly freed worlds. The ships were different shapes and sizes, but all were being fitted with quantum drives and defensive systems, humanity's gift to their new allies. "Look at this," Reed said, showing Walker a report. "The Empire's subject worlds aren't just rebelling anymore. They're forming their own alliances. 3 new independent confederations have declared themselves in the past week alone." Walker nodded. "And each one has requested Earth's help in protecting their independence." He looked at the galactic map, where the Empire's territory was shrinking day by day. Funny how one simple warning could change everything. Dr. Roberts joined them, holding a data pad with new quantum equations. "The Empire scientists finally figured out where they went wrong," she said. "They were so focused on moving through space that they never thought about reshaping it. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that bigger and faster was always better. Their mistake," Walker added, "was not realizing that sometimes the quietest voice delivers the strongest warning." As the signing ceremony concluded, representatives from Earth and its new allies raised their hands together in celebration. The galaxy was entering a new era, one where advancement would be measured not by the size of your ships or the power of your weapons, but by the wisdom to use knowledge responsibly. In the command center, Walker looked at the warning they had sent to the Empire, still displayed on a small screen. "Reconsider your choice." "They should have listened," he said quietly. Dr. Roberts nodded. "They won't make that mistake again. No one will." As Earth's quantum ships continued their patrols, the galaxy learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a civilization that chooses its own path of progress. Sometimes, the most powerful forces in the universe are the ones you never see coming.